I've got a question for you. What is value? You want to write this one down. What is value? And I've got another question for you. What is profit? When it comes to value, most people think value is money. That's what everyone translates value to, is money. That's the term we all use. Well, I've got news. Money has no intrinsic value anymore. It isn't worth anything. It's numbers on a sheet. It's a piece of paper that somebody printed some ink on. It is not like 100 years ago when you could get a gold coin and it was actually worth what it was worth. And if you needed to, you could hammer the gold coin into a ring or make a piece of jewelry. Or today, if it was made out of gold coin, you could make computer chips or a million other things out of it. There isn't any intrinsic value in money. And so I want you to, if you're open to it, stop thinking about value as being just money. Start thinking about value as being something else. Money is just a little exchange medium we use in between types of value to trade one type for another. But don't get caught up in thinking that the money is the value, because it is not. Read a little world history and find out that when banks collapse, countries collapse, and the value of the money goes to zero, and everyone wakes up and goes, that couldn't happen. The value isn't in the money. Likewise, profit, most people think of profit as being money. That's it. That's the only way they think of it. It's a great measuring stick, sure. But true value and true profit are something entirely different than money. To me, profit is something like taking two stars, two spectacular people, and putting them together and letting them work together for a year so that they have this human broadband connection where they can communicate quickly and they can get information across and they can work well together. And then saying, okay, now that we've worked together for a year, you guys are, the two of you together are worth like 5 times what you were individually. That is profit to me. I have now created some profit there in my business, some value in my business. Now, all the types of value and profit that I'm going to talk about, for the most part, are going to be those types. And what I hope is, like Warren Buffett's investment style, that by getting the value in the fundamentals, that it will reflect in the money. We'll talk about some money concepts too. And you'll hear people that have differing opinions from me. You'll hear there are going to be 2 or 3 people on this stage that have started, built, and run $100 million companies. Very, very successful people. 1 or 2 of them might disagree with me and say, no, it's all about the money. And that's okay. Differing opinions are okay. But I think if we had a conversation about it, you'd see that we would all agree that the value and the profit are really in the fundamentals. They're in the underlying structures and conditions. And the money is just one way of kind of monetizing the value. Another thing that I've seen that's a fascinating and counterintuitive process that we need to talk about and think about and master over the next few days before we get into the specifics is balancing creation with discovery. Write this one down. Balancing creation with discovery. Do you remember when I said I was, in Bo Peabody's words, I was smart enough to know I was getting lucky? Was he creating or discovering? There was a lot of discovery in there. Sure, he was creating things, but it was much more on the discovery end. And so instead of getting caught up trying to plan for success and think that you know how to make everything happen and it's definitely going to be this way, be open to what you discover on the way. Because oftentimes, as you're creating, something that you discover will take you down the path that will ultimately be your biggest success. And that's really what's happened to me and what's happened to a lot of other folks. So balance creation with discovery and be open to discovery. A couple of quick psychological principles I want to give you. 2 of the mechanisms that we have inside of our kind of cognitive emotional system that I think prevent us from success are what I call emotional estimation, and number 2, seeing only validation. So say these with me. I'm going to say them once and then I want you to repeat them. Emotional estimation and seeing only validation. Say them with me. Emotional estimation and seeing only validation. A lot of big, obscure words, but we'll dig into them a lot. Emotional estimation and seeing only validation. As it turns out, we humans are not very good at predicting how things in the future will make us feel. We're horrible at it. In fact, even experts who are trained, and they know this, are horrible at estimating how things in the future will make them feel. Now, emotional estimation actually has two sides. It's looking from now into the future and saying, if I do this, it will make me feel good, or if I avoid doing this, it'll make me feel bad. So predicting how you'll feel in the future. And the other side of emotional estimation is using your emotions to estimate something. Because I feel good about it, it's going to be good. Because I feel bad about it, it's going to be bad. If you've ever known someone that spent a lot of time investing in the stock market, you'll know what I'm talking about. Most of us are familiar with the studies they've done with lottery winners. They win the lottery, something like, I don't remember what it is, 80% of them, 5 years after they win the lottery, are in worse financial condition than the day before they won the lottery. I was having a conversation with my mom. Hi, Mom, don't take this personally, please. I was having a conversation with my mom a couple of years ago, and I said, Mom, most people that win the lottery lose all the money and are less happy 5 years later. She was talking about something, money, wish I won the lottery kind of thing. And I was saying, let's work on some other things to solve that problem. And I said, yeah, so you'd probably lose all the money. I'd probably lose it all. I mean, that's what happens with people when they win the lottery. Look at the statistics. And she said, oh no, I would never lose all that money, right? That's that mechanism that we all have. I have it too. And that's the thing that blinds us and makes us lose all the money. The emotional estimation. And seeing only validation, and you want to put in parentheses after seeing only validation, put seeking, so it's seeing and seeking only validation. I once heard someone say that people don't go to therapy to get fixed, they go to therapy so that someone will sit there and say, oh wow, that must have been hard. I'd feel the same way if I were you. That'll be $175 an hour. And I don't mean to criticize, I've known some spectacular and amazing therapists and so forth, but I think you get the point. And what do we do most of the time? We sit around and go, oh, yep, that's where I was right. Yep, that's where I'm smart. Oh, yeah, I was right there too. Oh, yeah. Oh, see, I was thinking of that thing before you even said it. I was just going to do that. Oh, you think that's good? You should have heard what I did in my past business with this other guy before we got arrested. So we just look for where we're right, and we don't see where we're wrong. We just don't do it. Emotional estimation, seeing only validation. Examples we're going to talk more about in the program are hiring people that you like. Emotional estimation. Wow, I really like you. I got a good feeling about this. How do those usually turn out? Expensive. I'm talking money expensive here, too. I had one time where several years ago in the business, I found a great source of new leads for our business. They looked like they were great. They were converting at a high rate. And I said, okay, well, let's build some systems and set them up because we're going to be buying a lot of this type of lead. You could buy them by the million. Let's just say I was doing a little bit of emotional estimation. You ever test something or put something on the market or run an ad and all of a sudden you get all these results and then you sit for days calculating how at $1,200 an hour, 24 hours a day, oh my God, and then you're like making Excel spreadsheets with how much money you're going to make and thinking about it. Who's ever done that when you had a little success? All right, great. And then what happens 97% of the time afterwards? It's just not, it doesn't work out quite that way, right? That's emotional estimation. And another one that's very common is this idea, this notion that we get that reaching the objective we want, reaching the goal that we want to reach in life is somehow going to permanently solve all of our problems. Again, weird, interesting, but we kind of all do it. I'm going to get to this goal, I'm going to make $5 million, and I'm going to get the $5 million in the bank. And then, that's it. All of my problems will be solved. And what we typically fail to take into consideration is it's still going to be you. You're going to bring you with you to that $5 million. Emotional estimation. So the answers to these things, and again, these are things we're going to be covering a lot in the program, are two little processes that I've kind of learned, modeled. Most of these have just come from the outside world, like most of the things I'm going to share. It's the combination that's important. Number one, write this down, data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions. If you're not using some data that's coming from outside of this dome piece of yours to make your decisions, you're probably erring in some way. Data-driven decisions. And the other is a little formula that I like to use, and I call it test, model, project. Do a test, build a little model with the results, and then project. Test, model, and project. If you use these two little ideas, data-driven decisions and test, model, and project, it will help a lot. You'll at least be starting with a strategy or a process that will get you off on the right foot. And then if you can try and notice when you and other people are estimating emotionally and just looking for validation and for where you're right, I think you can do well. So we're going to talk about 5 areas in this program. You, your market, your marketing, your people, and your systems. Something that I have noticed about those 5 areas that's a cool little shortcut to use is that if you get the market part right, which is your target market, your audience, and the products and services that you sell to them, that market that you create, if you get that right, the marketing becomes pretty easy. The marketing almost takes care of itself. So if you get the market right, it just drives the marketing. And with the people and the systems, if you get the right people, you get the people part right, they will create and drive the systems. So that leaves you to drive the market and drive the people, and it will dramatically reduce how much time, effort, and energy you have to spend on the marketing and the systems. You're going upstream. I actually wrote this down as a little note. I guess this was one of my more enlightened and inspired moments. What I wrote is, if I have a secret to my success, it's to get the market right and the people right, and then test the hell out of everything and scale what works. Maybe that wasn't as funny as I thought it was. Test the hell out of everything and scale what works. Okay. Raise your hand if you're good at multitasking, doing a lot of things at once. I'm serious, that you're good at it. Raise your hand if you're really good at multitasking. Come on, I know there are more. We're going to try this one more time. Raise your hand if you're good at multitasking. Raise your hand. Okay, good, good. Most of the people in the room. Now, what's fascinating about multitasking is that almost all of us, especially entrepreneurs, do it. And most of us are pretty good at it. And multitasking is a very cool discovery, especially if you're doing things like, let's say, cooking a meal. You want to put if you're going to make rice, you want to put the rice on before you stick something under the broiler that's going to only take 3 or 4 minutes to toast. And you got to coordinate everything, and you can let certain things cook and certain things marinate. It is a perfect place for multitasking. What I've found is that business, and especially for high-achieving entrepreneurs, is a horrible place for multitasking. And in fact, multitasking is almost a disease that's robbing us of much of our success. There's a place for multitasking in business, don't get me wrong, but most of the time you should not be multitasking. And any time that you're spending multitasking, probably right now, you are almost certainly robbing yourself. So can we start handing out those 3 handouts? The 2 gray zone handouts, and then the 1 content handout. So the first thing that we're looking at is this little document that says, "Get out of the gray zone." And let me introduce you to the gray zone. The gray zone is that place when you are not completely, fully engaged and focused doing the things that get you the highest benefit, result, profit, growth, and you're not completely unplugged, completely out, completely rejuvenating and relaxing. That's the gray zone. Does that make sense? When you're in the gray zone, you're typically multitasking. You're trying to do a lot of stuff at once. When you're out of the gray zone, what you've done is you've taken all of that high-value stuff that you do, the effort, the work, the focus, and you've put it into chunks, and you've taken all of the relaxation, rejuvenation, and you've put that into big chunks as well. Now, I've created this model based on my own experience and on learning from some very smart people who I'd like to pay a little bit of attribution to. One of those smart people is John O'Neill, who wrote a book called The Paradox of Success that my mentor, Jerry Ballinger, introduced me to. And in The Paradox of Success, John O'Neill points out the idea that when we start having success and we start really taking off and getting a taste of what that's like, sometimes it goes a little far, it kind of gets into our soul, and we get addicted to that work. And it's not enough that I win, other people have to lose, and I just have to be in there all the time playing the game. Arr. And what we don't do is we don't get away, we don't unplug and get distance and get involved in the things that really fulfill us, our hobbies, our families, and separate that time completely from the work that we do. Another model that was very influential to me was Stephen Covey's quadrant time management system, the 4 quadrants, and he talks about things that are urgent, things that are important, and when it's all said and done, we get distracted by things that are urgent and they interrupt us, but we don't pay attention to those things that are important, but they're not urgent. They're things that you have to proactively do, that quadrant 2 stuff. That was very influential also in my thinking. Dan Sullivan has some great thinking on this. He's the strategic coach guy. He talks about his time management system where he blocks off entire days to be focused in your work and entire days to be unplugged and entire days to do the other stuff in between. And finally, though, probably the most influential on me was Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker is the brilliant management expert, probably the most famous management author in history, and he wrote a great book called The Effective Executive and a bunch of others. And I read that book probably 12 or 13 years ago. And in The Effective Executive, he talks about focusing on strength, knowing where your time goes. But he says something that's very simple. If you focus your time in chunks of uninterrupted, focused effort, you'll just get more done. So focused blocks, 2 hours or more is my rule of thumb. No interruptions. You'll get a lot more done. And when I put that all together and also conceptualized a little bit, I came up with this concept that I call tea time and re-time. And tea time stands for talent time. It's when you're in your talent and in your strength. And I'm going to use these 2 terms, talent and strength, a lot in this program. A strength is a talent, something that you kind of come equipped with, a natural ability that has been developed and exercised and coached. Then it becomes a strength. Inner talent, outer strength. So tea time is when you're in that talent and strength time, and when you're in business, it's that overlapping circles, kind of that Venn diagram, when you're doing the things where you have talent and strength and it also brings large results, big value, big profit. And re-time is when you're unplugged. It stands for relaxation, renewal, rejuvenation, re. Stephen Covey calls it sharpening the saw. John O'Neill, renewal. There's another gentleman I've met in the last few years. His name's Tony Schwartz. He's written several great books. One of them was called The Power of Full Engagement. He might be the best thinker I've ever seen on this. He's actually going to share here at the program. And he he talks about the rhythm that you go through between these two and setting up a rhythm between being completely engaged and being completely unplugged. So what I'd like you to do now as part of this exercise is I'd like you to just consider what is it that is your talent that has been developed into a strength where when you do it in your business, it creates a lot of profit, a lot of value, brings good things long term. And then what is it, those things that you do when you unplug to rejuvenate, to renew, to completely get away, when you're totally disconnected from your business, that when you're finished doing it, you come back and you're just recharged, you're recentered. So let's just take a couple of minutes quickly and write down just a few of each. So good. Next, take out your tea time and retime strategizer. And here are a couple of themes that we're going to be coming back to over and over in the program. And the themes are removing friction and blocks and creating conditions and structures. Removing frictions and blocks, creating conditions and structures. You might even want to write those down. Remove friction and blocks, create conditions and structures. These are systemic things that if you do on a consistent basis, you just do them all the time, they become habitual, you'll find that all the other problems will start solving themselves more easily. So the things that we're doing here, the exercises, these are brainstorms. These are to get you started. We're doing exercises to change your thinking and your habit patterns and your behavior. You're going to develop this more later. This is just something to get you started. It's to get you on the road. So what I'd like you to do in this tea time and retime strategizer is go back to this document where you figured out what your best tea time activities are and your best retime activities, and pick 2 from each list, the top 2, the most important 2. And write them in the boxes underneath activity. So you got 2 for tea time and 2 for retime. And then what I'd like you to do is ask yourself this question. Which friction and blocks do I need to remove so that I can perform more of that activity? What are the friction and blocks that I need to remove? And then next, what are the conditions and structures that I need to put in place to facilitate more of those activities? See the 2 sides? Friction and blocks to remove, conditions and structures put in place. And then finally, action steps. And what I'd like you to do is just write down one action step. One action step. So for each of these boxes, you're just going to jam through them. You're going to brainstorm through them very quickly. And for this exercise, let's put one thing in each box, 5 to 7 words maximum. You'll know what your words mean later. You'll know what they mean. This is your life. Okay, so quickly, put one activity that's a tea time activity, and then immediately, what are the friction blocks that I need to remove? Write one thing. Condition and structure I would need to put in place so that I can enjoy more of it. Third, an action step I can do immediately. Is this making sense? Clear? An example of a condition and structure? Okay, let's say that, and I'm not going to, I'm going to give you something really simple here, but let's say that one of the things you want to do is take a break every 90 minutes in your business, and you want to stop for 15 minutes and drink some water, do a little bit of exercise, stand up, move around. A condition and structure that you could put in place is in your Outlook calendar every day. You can have a reminder that goes off at those strategic points, and that's a condition and a structure that you've put in place that will pop up and just remind you every 90 minutes. Oh, ding. Oh, okay, right, I got to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, you can do more complex things, like you can have someone that works on your team as your accountability partner, and you can say, I need you to be my structure. Does this make sense to you?
I get that concept. I'm just trying to apply it to my...
It's always hardest to apply it to yourself. Try, okay? And we'll do a little work on it in a second here. Okay, we're just going to take 3 minutes. You're going to jam through these. It's a quick exercise. Who got a good one that they're going to implement and it's going to make them a lot of money? Who would be willing to share? This one?
Hi.
Hi.
So,
who are you and where are you from?
my name's Carol Allen, and I'm from Eagle Rock, California, right near here.
Nice.
And it's great to be here. And what I got is that my whole life is the gray zone. I never really unplug. When I walk the dog, I make phone calls. When I'm hanging with my husband, I'm checking email. When I'm out with a friend, I'm talking about business. So I never really get re-time. And that's why everything's gray, and I'm tired. So thank you. Enough of that.
It's a good one. Good one. Give her a hand for being the first participator. And I think what you're going to find is the more you get some re-time, the more you actually make more tea time and make it stronger. Who else got something that they can apply and it'll work really well? Do you want to run over to that mic right there since it's close? Say your name, where you're from.
My name is Mike Lewitz. I drove in from Phoenix, Arizona, land of the sun. What I learned is that it's just fascinating. I'm one of those kind of people, like, I got to keep doing it and doing it and doing it until the project's done. I mean, I don't like take breaks. Oh, I got to finish. I'll stay up all hours of the night. Sometimes I wouldn't even go to sleep for 2 days just because I got to get this project done. And just looking at this and going, wow, if I just did something in like, 2-hour blocks or something, just stopped and walk away, I could probably get more done in less time, and my brain would be less of a cloud. And like she said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being tired. So.
Sometimes it's the intuitive thing to do to just keep
it's
hammering.
It's so counterintuitive to stop. And you're like, oh, I've got so much to do. So.
Good. Thank you very much.
I'm Matt Gerchow from Miami, Florida. My realization was something that I've kind of been realizing. I've kind of been flowing along the lines of a lot of the stuff you've been teaching already. But what is taking up some of my time during the day is conceptualizing and spending the time to write out, I guess it's called a use case scenario for my website. And I get just buried in it, and I keep changing it around, and then, okay, well, what would the admin do in this situation? What would the user do? What would our subscribers do? And I just made a realization that I need to hire a technical writer, and then my action step is that I'm going to put an ad on Elance tonight to get that covered.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Scott Saunders. I'm from Solvang, California. 20 years ago when I was in college, I heard a lecture from someone who explained that if you will study, he said, if you study between 2 and 4 hours in one block of time every day, that in your 4 years, you will be in the top 1% of your field, whatever it is. And I took that to heart, and when I was in college, I went from a C student to essentially a straight A student, got me all the way through medical school. But since that time, I've forgotten that. I haven't done that at all. I've been doing multitasking the whole time. I don't do those blocks of time anymore. So that was my big aha experience.
Thank you for sharing. So write down big mistake number 1 to avoid. Find what works and stop doing it. How often we do that in life, and especially in marketing.